Many sci-fi fans have long hoped for a version of Dune that would do greater visual and narrative justice to Frank Herbert's work. Now, director Denis Villeneuve has been drafted to bring it to the big screen. Here's everything we know about the 2021 adaptation of Dune so far. The road to making a new cinematic version of Dune was lengthy even before the current roster of talent signed on for the film. Director Denis Villeneuve, who'd long hoped to helm a new adaptation of the novel, signed on to make the film in 2017. However, it wasn't until 2 years later that the project actually landed a 2020 release date. Then, the COVID-19 pandemic hit, making a 2020 release for Dune very unlikely and leaving Warner Bros. To make some new moves. In October of 2020, Warner Bros. Announced that the film would shift to October 1st, 2021. Then, in December, the studio dropped some even bigger news. Its entire 2021 film slate, including Dune, would also simultaneously premiere on the HBO Max streaming service, giving viewers a chance to watch the film at home without waiting.
It's time.
Any Dune adaptation faces a monumental challenge in assembling a cast to fill Herbert's universe. It starts with finding the perfect actors to stand in the center of it all as the Atreides family. In 2018, Oscar nominee Timothée Chalamet joined the film as Paul Atreides, making Dune his first blockbuster role. Shortly after reports of Chalamet's involvement started circulating, Rebecca Ferguson joined the film as Paul's mother, the Bene Gesserit woman, Lady Jessica. She first begins teaching him the gifts that will later manifest as messianic abilities. With the two most prominent members of House Atreides in place, it was time for the film to cast Duke Leto Atreides. This is Paul's father, who brings his family to Arrakis to take over leadership of the planet and finds only trouble. In early 2019, it was revealed that Duke Leto would be played by Oscar Isaac, who adds another major sci-fi franchise to his resume just a few years after joining the Star Wars galaxy. These three actors form the core family unit that is House Atreides, but they're far from the only major stars in the film. Dune is an epic novel spanning several years and featuring two major royal houses, Atreides and Harkonnen, who battle each other for supremacy on the planet. One that also includes its own native race, the Fremen. That means a massive cast needed to be assembled to make the film work. Because this is a Denis Villeneuve film adaptation of one of the most beloved genre novels ever, A-list actors have lined up to make the supporting cast for Dune a truly all-star ensemble. Among the stars assembled to round out the film's cast are Stellan Skarsgård, Jason Momoa, Javier Bardem, Zendaya, Josh Brolin, David Dastmalchian, Dave Bautista, and Charlotte Rampling. It's an exciting, diverse roundup of some of the most acclaimed actors working right now in both action blockbusters and prestige dramas. It's exactly the right blend for Herbert's sprawling space opera of warring dynasties. Dune is one of the most celebrated and influential science fiction novels ever written. First published in 1965, Frank Herbert's novel is set amid a future civilization built on a kind of interplanetary feudal system. There's a central government led by an emperor, and various planets are controlled by his vassals, which take the title of Baron or Duke. The main action of Dune takes place on the planet Arrakis. It's one of the most important fiefdoms in the Empire because its vast deserts contain the spice, an addictive and valuable substance. The novel follows the Atreides family as they are given control of Arrakis by the Emperor, only to find that a vast plot to overthrow them is already underway. Amid these political struggles, Duke Leto Atreides' young son, Paul, begins to manifest superhuman abilities that make him a messiah figure among the local Fremen. A rebellion begins, and Paul's abilities make him into a leader fit to challenge the Emperor himself.
My Lord Duke.
Of course, Herbert's novel is much more complicated than that, and after Dune, he just kept going. Herbert himself wrote 5 sequels to the novel and concluded his series with Chapter House Dune in 1985, but the story didn't end there. Herbert's son Brian picked up the torch from his father, and with novelist Kevin J. Anderson, has published more than a dozen more Dune books, many of them prequels to the original novel. The earliest attempts to adapt Dune for the screen kicked off just a few years after the novel was published. In the mid-1970s, director Alejandro Jodorowsky launched a tremendously ambitious effort to bring the novel to the screen. The project involved everyone, from Orson Welles to Salvador Dali to Pink Floyd. Jodorowsky eventually abandoned the project when the financing for the film could not be fully realized, but his efforts were later chronicled in the 2013 documentary Jodorowsky's Dune. The post-Star Wars era improved the fortunes of Dune as a movie. So, in 1984, a big-screen version helmed by director David Lynch was finally released, starring Kyle MacLachlan as Paul Atreides. Although it has since become a cult film, Dune was a box office flop and earned negative reviews. Lynch, not yet the household name he would be after Twin Peaks, was frustrated by a lack of creative control and eventually disowned his Dune altogether. A longer and more faithful adaptation of Herbert's novel arrived on the small screen in 2000 as Frank Herbert's Dune. It's a TV miniseries written by John Harrison that aired in 3 two-hour installments on the Sci-Fi Channel. It was successful enough that a sequel, Frank Herbert's Children of Dune, followed in 2003 and adapted the next 2 novels in Herbert's series. Attempts to bring Dune back to the big screen kicked into gear in 2008 when Paramount Pictures announced Peter Berg would direct a new adaptation. That effort eventually stalled, and in 2016, Legendary Pictures announced that they had landed the film and TV rights for Dune. Soon after Legendary's announcement that they would be adapting Dune for the screen again, reports began to circulate that director Denis Villeneuve was the studio's choice to direct the new film version. Villeneuve's involvement was confirmed by Brian Herbert in 2017 after he dazzled audiences with Arrival, but before Blade Runner 2049 arrived in theaters to critical acclaim. Thanks to those 2 films in particular, Villeneuve is one of the most important voices in science fiction cinema right now. He's a lifelong Dune fan who called the chance to adapt the book the project of his life. But he made it clear that he wouldn't be relying on the Lynch film version at all. Villeneuve said, "I mean, David Lynch is one of the best filmmakers alive. I have massive respect for him, but when I saw his adaptation, I was impressed, but it was not what I had dreamed of, so I'm trying to make the adaptation of my dreams. It will not have any link with the David Lynch movie. I'm going back to the book and going to the images that came out when I read it." Frank Herbert's original novel is not the longest genre epic you're likely to find on the shelves at your local bookstores, but it is among the most dense. Dune is a book absolutely packed with plot, covering dozens of characters, multiple groups and cultures, and a vast mythology, some of which is only hinted at in the first novel. It's the kind of book so full of detail that it needs an appendix at the back so you can look up various invented terms for more clarity. That means adapting the book to the screen is hard, particularly when you're working within the constraints of a big-budget film. These days, that pretty much demands you weigh in with a runtime of 3 hours or less. Even with that in mind, though, adapting Dune as one 3-hour story is a daunting prospect that's defeated filmmakers in the past. So, for Villeneuve's film version, the solution was obvious. Don't try to make Dune one film. Villeneuve made it clear that he was setting a goal of 2 films for Dune. In the summer of 2018, Brian Herbert confirmed that the screenplay for the new film would adapt approximately half of the first novel in the series. It's not clear how far approximately half will take us, but the novel does include a time jump to allow Paul Atreides to age a bit at one point, so it's possible the first film will leave off there. Brian Herbert confirmed in 2018 that Villeneuve's desire to split Dune into 2 films had come to fruition and that the film we'd see first would only adapt half the novel. This was reaffirmed in the spring of 2019 by Legendary Pictures CEO Joshua Grode, who added a little context as to why the split happened. He shared, "There's a backstory that was hinted at in some of the books that we expanded. Also, when you read the book, there's a logical place to stop the movie before the book is over. There's one really interesting wrinkle in all of this, though. Yes, Dune will be split into 2 films, but it's not like The Lord of the Rings. Peter Jackson shot all of those movies back to back, but Villeneuve is not making one Dune film right after the other. Instead, Legendary seems to be waiting to see how the first film fares before launching into production on a sequel. This adds intrigue to what Villeneuve said when he first discussed his 2-movie plan. He said, "Dune will probably take 2 years to make. The goal is to make 2 films, maybe more." So far, the only adaptation we've gotten beyond Herbert's first novel is the Children of Dune miniseries. However, if Villeneuve has his way, we could one day see a film version of other books. After years of anticipation, the first official trailer for Dune arrived in September of 2020. This was back when Warner Brothers was still holding out hope that the film might make it into theaters that December. That, of course, didn't happen. But the trailer still managed to capture the hearts and imaginations of fans, raising the anticipation level for the film more than a year before its eventual release. The first trailer is much more of a teaser than a full plot breakdown. It spends much of its time with Paul Atreides as he grapples with visions of what might happen to him and his family as they head for the desert planet of Arrakis. We see him tested, tormented, and doing his best to be strong even as the dangers of the planet become apparent. The trailer is, of course, packed with dazzling visuals leading up to the reveal of a sandworm at the end. The second official trailer, released in the summer of 2021, digs more heavily into the plot and the supporting cast of the film, and pays particular attention to Chani, the Fremen girl Paul eventually falls in love with. In this trailer, we get a much better sense of the plot. Paul begins to realize not only that his family is in grave danger from the evil Harkonnens, but that he himself might not actually be the person to lead House Atreides into the future. It's a much fuller view of the film, one that allows us to see more of the internal dynamics of the ensemble, as well as some great action sequences.
Get everything with guns off the ground! Go!
Not all were happy when Warner Media announced Dune would simultaneously premiere in theaters and on the HBO Max streaming service, including Dune director Denis Villeneuve. In a statement released to Variety at the time, Villeneuve blasted Warner's parent company, AT&T. He explained that he learned about the release plans, quote, in the news like everyone else. He wrote, "With this decision, AT&T has hijacked one of the most respectable and important studios in film history. There is absolutely no love for cinema nor for the audience here." Though Villeneuve was not the only critic of the release strategy, he has remained among the loudest. In an August 2021 interview with Total Film, he called the move ridiculous and, regarding watching Dune on a home TV, said, "It's like driving a speedboat in your bathtub." Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about upcoming movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.